Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, the gardens are in full color. Walk amidst tropical and native butterflies in flight in the indoor Pacific Island Water Garden. View the conservatory's bonsai collection and experience the exhibition Origami in the Garden. Find details at fpconservatory.org.
And welcome back to the program. Mark News here alongside Fred Howard, the Ohio Nurseryman. 1-866-PLANT-TALK with 2 T's. That's the toll-free number. Probably sneak in one more phone call if you'd like to give us a call right now. Fred, back to the topic of mums. Mm-hmm. And you said that one thing that people sometimes neglect that they should do is dig and divide those every so often.
Yes. Mark, that is a truth for most perennials. So having said that, then let's go back to the mum. Mums might even be more fussy about that than some other plants. Let's go with you having purchased a mum that is probably a cutting and rooted, and you plant it in late April. It grows, you pinch, and you enjoy it to the hilt. It got, let's call it X tall and wide, and was very successful. Now, under those circumstances, there's a good chance that it will come along over winter because it's rooted in, it's established. Next year, it's going to come up and look pretty much the same, only a little wider, perhaps because it's situated a little taller, but not much change. Now, the third year, if you're paying close attention, you'll probably notice that as that plant starts and grows on again, that the center of the plant is a little, I'm going to call it more puny than the area around the outside edge. The fourth year and fifth year, if it isn't dead in the middle, I would miss my guess, because the plant that you initially planted has long since died, and all of the suckers or shoots that have come off of it are now what's making this beautiful plant. So let's just say at the spring following the third year of growth, you should literally dig the whole clump, divide it with either spading forks back to back or a sharp spade, whichever, either will do it, and go to the, I'll call it the outside edge of this root mass, and take 3, 4, 5 plants, depending on how big it is. Plant 3 back and give the rest to Aunt Hattie or somebody in the neighborhood to grow on. And then the plant will regenerate itself, grow another 3 years, then you dig and divide, and you can keep a mum going and other plants for a considerable period of time if you do this. If you don't, it will just simply die out from the middle and turn puny, and in just 1 year it won't come back. They just, all plants that are not caused to regenerate can do that. Oh, that is all perennial plants.
Lady just called, and she didn't want to be on the air, but she said, ask Fred about his Christmas cactus. She goes, mine have been blooming profusely since November 1st.
Okay.
Now, is that hellebore?
No. No. Well, I don't think so. Christmas cactus is an indoor plant on the tropical side of things, and it's the one that is in various tones of pink.
Yeah. Hellebore is Lenten rose?
Hellebore is the Lenten rose. That's an outdoor plant, tough as nails, especially in the shade, grows well, does a lot of interesting and wonderful things. As a matter of fact, I have, now that other things are dying around, or shall we say dying down for the winter, the hellebores are looking pretty darn good because they're still fat and sassy, dark green leaves. They will probably not bloom until, well, after the first of the year, although that can vary. Now, her Christmas cactus, she must have it under ideal, or have them under ideal conditions indoors. Sometime in the next week or two, if she takes a notion, please call back and answer a couple questions for me. In the meantime, measure, in a manner of speaking, how much direct sun the plants get, how much shade, what direction the window that they're near faces, and so on. And then I can share this care factor, because some people don't even get them to bloom. And if hers is doing perfect, and I've got a couple stories along those lines, but I would like to hear from her on how she gets them to look that good November 1. It's about normal, but at the same time, sounds like hers is pretty exceptional.
Yeah, good. That's lucky.
Yeah,
or she knows what she's doing. Maybe it's not luck.
You make your own luck, Mark.
That's right. Or you don't, in my case.
Right.
A couple of real quick email questions here. Connie wrote in this week, I have several large sage plants on one side of the house. I usually shape them up once the flowers are gone, but next year I'd like to have much smaller plants. Can I cut them back hard right now?
No. Now, that varies a little bit. If they have turned pretty much dormant, yes, but I would be more apt to suggest right after Thanksgiving. Or you can let them stand and cut in the very early spring. To do it now, you might possibly encourage a little internal growth in the cell factors in the plant. And if that happens, that means the plant's not draining water out of its system, and then it can rupture just like a water-filled radiator with no antifreeze in it.
And how hard can she cut those back?
Oh, Mark, I would not go below 3 or 4 inches so that there's enough stem tissue, hopefully with buds on it, to regenerate. She could also, well, it depends on how tall they are. She could also stay at about a foot and keep a fairly fat, sassy plant.
And Lori wrote in this week and says, can I prune my forsythia this time of the year, or will I be cutting off next spring's flowers?
Off go the flowers. Now, if you're doing the 1/3 removal, 1/4 removal, taking out individual stems, you will not have changed the plant that much. But if you use what I call the buzz method with electric pruners and shear it all off down 1/4 or 1/3, you have cut off all of next year's flowers. Remember, prune following the bloom, which means sometime late next spring.
Once again, if you have an email question, you can just go to our website, planttalkradio.com, and send that to Fred. We also have a lot of neat stuff on our website. We'd like for you to check that out. And also check out our Facebook page, which we update fairly often, and we put some fun stuff on there as well. And you can join the conversation with us, too. Fred will have his to-do list. It looks pretty long today, Fred. That's coming up next on Plant Talk. Stick around.
This summer at Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, the gardens are in full color. Welcome its tropical and native butterflies in flight in the indoor Pacific Island Water Garden. View the conservatory's bonsai collection and experience the exhibition Origami in the Garden. Find details at fpconservatory.org.
Okay. I mentioned at the beginning the cartoon talking about the fellow working at home on weekends. Yes, well, there are things to do. Mark, you have to continue to mow at least until Thanksgiving. I know.
At least I chop up my leaves.
Well, and that's also a very good idea. It has been proven that you can chop properly, to maybe mow 2 or 3 times, but chop it down to the size of a nickel or dime in area, and you can let it filter right back into the grass, and it actually is a nutrient source, just like leaves falling in the woods. But there's no grass in the woods.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we simply have mentioned being careful about clay or ceramic containers. As soon as we get a true freeze for 2 or 3 days, if you have things outdoors that have a moist root system, which is the way to keep them alive during the winter, but if it's moist and the pot has imbibed water, look out, because, well, I know of a vessel. I mean, this was a big dude. I think it was about $300. And they watered the plants in the fall to keep them alive, root-wise and so on. However, the clay was open clay, had been fired, but no glaze on it. And oops, they repotted come spring. Now then, it's the last application of fertilizer can go on to the lawn right now. You can fertilize trees at this time of year. You can also look around and pick the evergreens that need to be pruned, be it juniper or taxus or whatever, and cut those greens within another couple of weeks for mantle decorations and home decorations later this fall.
And thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you again next week for another edition of Plant Talk Radio.
Plant Talk is sponsored by Franklin Park Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, fpconservatory.org. If you have a question for Fred for a future show, go to our Facebook page and ask away. We value your comments about the show, so please tell us what you think by writing a review on iTunes. This helps others find out about Plant Talk. You can find out more about Plant Talk on our website at planttalkradio.com.